We've got a Greg Cody Tuesday. We've got a scared Greg Cody right now. He came in here saying because his son has pushed and prodded him to get a more modern haircut, to keep up with the times, to not just look like Beowulf or Ben Franklin, but to really modernize his hair. And we have decided, and this is dangerous, I'm a little bit scared about this. It's not just that we're getting an expert barber. It's that we're getting a specific type of, I'm assuming, Miami Latin barber, Tony's barber, and that barber will cut you up crisp, and there is the risk that Greg Cody, approaching near 70, will have an age-inappropriate haircut of trying too hard, because this is, Tony, your barber. Your barber is Latin cliche barber.
That's right. He went to my wedding, cut me up at my wedding. This is a personal friend of mine, my personal barber, Greg. I love that you're here and trusting him to give you a modern haircut.
Well, Tony, I'm trusting you to rein in your barber because I don't know this gentleman.
I can't rein him in.
Okay, that scares me.
We're going to do this in a couple of hours. We're going to do it live here in the studio.
He cut you up at your wedding?
That's right. He went to my wedding.
Really?
And cut me up there, yeah.
Amazing.
Can we get a better phrase for a haircut than cut you up?
Billy, why were you rolling your eyes at Tony and his barber?
Well, because Tony then told me, like, oh, he's going to cut up Greg, and then he's going to give me a haircut. I'm like, wait a minute. Hold on a second. It sounds like you just booked your barber to get a free haircut on the company after this.
I pay him.
What do you pay for a haircut, Tony? Is that an indelicate question?
Wait, what does Greg pay for a haircut?
I typically pay $15, and if I like the haircut, it's a $5, generous $5 tip, rounded up to 20.
Right.
If I don't like the haircut, it's a quick $18. It's a quick $3 tip.
We're in, just because I've had this conversation with Tony before, we're in a dangerous situation, and I'm kind of wondering how people feel about this moving forward, because Tony has gone to his, and correct me if I'm wrong, Tony has gone to his barber for a very long time, correct? Yes. So, Tony paid a price for the barber when he started going there and has not changed the price that he pays as time has gone on over like 10 years or something like that.
Maybe longer, maybe like 15 years.
So, Tony is paying the price of a haircut from 15 years ago because this is his guy. But he's really not taking care of his guy because he's paying him 15 years ago prices.
Put it on the poll at Le Batard Show. If your barber hasn't raised his rates in 15 years, is it incumbent upon you to raise his rates for him?
No, because here's what I believe, and we can ask his barber. Actually, let's not talk to his barber because I feel like we know where that's going to go. But if you ask his barber what he would charge for a haircut now, I guarantee you that for a new client, it's not what he would charge the price of from 15 years ago that Tony still pays. So I feel like Tony's doing him a disservice by not paying him a little more.
Billy, he's here to cut Greg's haircut on the biggest podcast in the world. What are you talking about? I'm giving him access to areas that he would never be able to get to.
Yep.
He should pay you to cut your hair.
No, I didn't say that. But I am.
They should be for free, though, I think.
No. I pay my boy because I take care of him, and I'm a very frequent user.
You pay him $10 a haircut, right?
That's not true.
25.
I just checked my wallet because I'm nervous right now that I'm going to be expected to tip this guy on top of whatever Tony has paid him.
Well, you should give him something for his efforts. How scared are you right now? And, Lucy, what are your thoughts on how scared he should be in this situation?
He came in really nervous. We talked about it a little bit. I gave him tips for hair growth in case it goes wrong. Rosemary oil is a big difference. So even if it goes bad, which it's not going to, fingers crossed. Right.
Yeah.
We can grow it back real fast. I got some tips and tricks for you.
Okay, good.
What are you worried about, though?
I'm worried that it's going to be, I hate the phrase age inappropriate, but in this case, I'll use it. And by the way, I only have $7 in my wallet. A lousy tip. Mm-hmm. Age inappropriate.
bigger than your average haircut tip.
Right.
That's true.
Your most splendiferous tip is $5 is what you said.
Yeah,
if he likes it.
Dad, this guy ain't Supercuts either.
Dad, I want you to type into your computer right now, faux hawk. That's what I think we go for.
You should get that.
I ain't got anything to do with a mohawk.
I'm telling you,
That's
it's
up to the
stylish.
barber.
It's like longer on the top, shorter on the side. I'm telling
It's
you,
up to the barber, not you.
Does your barber do those haircuts that he lights that on fire?
No,
that they
come
do
on.
sometimes?
That's gimmick. He does not do that.
Oh.
That is a very Latin Miami barber shop. Let's put some pyrotechnics
Fire?
in the
All
situation.
right, now you really got me scared. Mohawk, hair on fire. I don't have enough hair to put on fire, and this is what worries me. I don't have enough hair for a mohawk. Just give me a businessman.
Billy,
haircut,
correct
please.
me, please, if I'm wrong, because I believe that in you and Tony, we're talking about two different Miami barber experiences. I assume that. I may have it wrong. Are you and he built the same when it comes to visiting the Miami barber, or do you have the same barber that you've had since you were 6 years old?
No, so I had a situation where I did go to Styles and Cuts on Bird Road on 97th Avenue since I was a little kid. And then I stopped going there, and then I went back. Greg, you would love this place. $12 for a haircut.
Wow.
It
$12. Yeah, but it became a thing where it was like unreliable. I'm not good at getting haircuts. I'm just going to say that right now. I'm not a good haircut getter. I have a thing with my neck where when they put the thing around my neck, it feels like it's suffocating me, and I'm really bad. Yeah, no, I like start getting like anxiety when I'm getting a haircut, and I'd like sometimes start hyperventilating. I feel like it's suffocating me. Like, I'm not good at getting haircuts. I'll tell you that right now. And then Tony actually showed me this app where I could go and I could book my haircut, because before I would be like a bum where I would just basically go
Booksy?
and I'd wait in line and see who it is that was available. So I didn't have a dedicated barber. I had a shop, but not a barber. And then, like, unfortunately, because of the fact of the location that I was going to on Bird and 97, Styles and Cuts, $12, a lot of the barbers, you know, were going on to greener pastures and the great above. So I eventually had to say, you know what, I think I need a younger barber here, that I have some sort of dependability on this situation.
Roy, why are you laughing?
The great above, huh?
Well, yeah, I mean, they, you know, what do you want me
The
to
upper
do?
room?
Yeah.
Did you answer my question?
Well, no. So Tony
like a
put
gym.
me. Tony put me in touch with. I guess he didn't put me in touch, but he told me about this app where I can go and do it. And Tony, I've sent him pictures of my barber shop and my barber, and he's in disbelief of where it is that I go to get these things.
The
done.
beautiful thing about Billy sent me the at of his barber on Instagram, but it's actually turned into a real estate page inexplicably. I don't know. He's
Well,
like, hey,
different
do you want to
businesses,
hey,
yeah.
do you want to sell a house?
I want to ask the entirety of our worldwide audience, do you think that anyone can beat my father on the bargain of you get your hair cut, you get your nose hairs trimmed, you get your eyebrows done, $10 with a $2 tip? Do you think anyone in our worldwide audience can get a better bargain than the one my father gets on his haircut?
Me, for free, because I cut my own hair.
Wow.
Attaboy.
You tip yourself?
You
Right.
did.
Yeah, I treat myself all right.
You did get me there, Roy.
The $10 is a bargain, but the $2, I'm certain the barber is upset by the $2 tip.
20%.
It is. That's a big tip. Go, Poppy, go.
My father always calls it 20%, not $2.
That's how you do it. How do you play?
Billy, I wanted to ask you about something last night because, as we mentioned, and we just glossed over it yesterday, the Marlins had been 4-19 in the last 23 games against the Braves, dragged regularly by 7-10 runs, just crushed. And then at the most important time of the season, they sweep the Braves. And then last night, the Mets come in. And I did not think in 2023 we would have a fair ball, foul ball controversy. But the Marlins lost a game that was hugely important to them. I imagine you were hanging on every pitch. I imagine, again, you got mad at David Robertson for being someone who makes you take Pepto-Bismol beyond your normal anxieties. And then Scott gives up a home run to a lefty. He's been great all season long, but the foul ball, fair ball thing, how crazy did that make you?
I don't understand how that happens still, especially when you have like a stadium with a roof. Why can't you just have the foul pole go all the way up to the roof, and then you don't have a situation where it can go over the foul pole, which is what happened, and then you have no idea where the ball is. And by the way, when I was watching replays and stuff, like, I couldn't see the ball some of the time. Like, it was way up there. I understand why it was a difficult call to make, but also the balls, I guess, have chips in them now because you know where the ball is at all times. And then when you see on the internet right after that this ball stayed in fair territory the entire time, I don't understand why that's something that
the
can't
Marlins
be.
lost a game because the technology was not right on what should have been a home run. Yes or no?
they lost the game because the umpires were wrong on whether it was fair or foul. But the technology seems to exist where, in soccer you have VAR, in tennis you have that thing where everybody's looking up at the screen and then all of a sudden you just see like a shadow of where
dramatic.
The ball went. Yeah. Oh my God, it's the best thing in sports.
Yes.
The best thing in sports. But in baseball,
You're saying that. Wait a minute. You're saying the best thing in sports is the shadow that tells you whether a tennis ball is in or out on the line.
100%.
Love it.
Yeah. Everyone's clapping. They're making noises. They're waiting for the
But
outcome.
if we do it, it does stand to reason, though, if we have that technology, we shouldn't just have a bunch of old guys gathered around and saying, hey, Ed, squinting up, did you think it was fair or foul? They played 150 games this season. We're going to decide the wild card by half a game. What do you think? Fair or foul, Ed?
Well, Ed had been drinking before the game as well.
Also, like the position of...
What'd you do to Ed?
Ed's an alcoholic. Wow.
I mean,
throw away all journalistic credibility and get reckless. Here is something we like to call reckless speculation.
You're good.
We're talking about umpires here. Come on.
What's your speculation?
The speculation is that the umpire may have had a couple of nips before the game,
On the hooch.
which may have impaired his judgment or fine-tuned it for the better.
Put it on the poll, please. Older phrase for drinking. On the hooch or couple of nips?
I've never heard either of those.
Yeah, well, you shouldn't have.
haven't been used since the
Billy
50s.
is somehow older than Greg Cody. It's hard to do. On the hooch, which I'm pretty sure hasn't been used since Prohibition. Since people were moonshining.
I love it. I regret saying a couple of nips. I'm officially retiring that phrase.
Okay, thanks for not
Why?
bringing any attention to it.
Okay.
Okay, excellent work.
they
you
also-
know what? Go sit on the therapy couch. Get out of here.
Oh,
Get out of
no.
here. Just get out of here,
I'll
Greg.
leave that therapy couch after my haircut, not now.
Go. That's not a choice you get to make. Go. Get out of here. Go.
Where is
Thank
it?
you. It's right outside. It's the only couch that we have out there. Billy, but were you mad because the game? That's obviously an important game. The Mets aren't playing for anything. And the Marlins just played very well against the Dodgers and the Braves.
Well, that's the thing. Like, you looked at the schedule of the wild card, or the teams remaining in the wild card hunt, and the Marlins had the toughest schedule out of everyone. And they've succeeded against the harder opponents. So looking forward, you're like, wow, they may actually do this. They have the Mets coming up. They have the Pirates coming up. They have very winnable games coming up. They may be able to hang on and make it into the playoffs. And then to have a call like that cost you in a game that you could easily win, it's frustrating.
Stugotz, with like a dozen games left, okay? Among the wild card teams, the Marlins have the worst run differential among all the teams that are competing. They are overachieving for what they should be because they win an extraordinary number of one-run games.
Them and Cincinnati are both minus 38.
And so what you have is a team that is improbable. Those are one of the best things that we have in sports.
Yes.
When somebody can surprise you, and they're now doing it patchwork, right? Because Soler is coming off of injury, and they need him. And Sandy is
trying
saying,
to force
"I'll be
his way
ready.
back,
I'll be ready
which-
for the playoffs. If there are playoffs, I'll be ready for the playoffs." And they'd be in the playoffs already if he were a fraction of what it is that he was last year. But he has not been. He's been a very average pitcher in all of the categories that matter, Stugotz, while having the highest average velocity on pitches that he throws in the big leagues. Nobody throws harder than that person every time he throws. And they've done it in spite of the reigning Cy Young winner being thoroughly mediocre by all of the metrics. And they lose a game last night at home against a feeble, greatest embarrassment in the sport, Mets team. And they lose it because the umps got it wrong. And I remember saying earlier this year that Angel Hernandez was actually having a good season as an umpire. He wasn't involved in this game, but I just marvel at how it is that the officiating, when we have all the technology in tennis to show you a shadow that's in or out, that last night there were calls in that game outside the strike zone. The umpire was consistent there. But Angel Hernandez was having a good season. But last night he had his worst game, or not last night, last week, He had his worst game in like 2 years. He missed 16 calls in a game.
Yeah, well, he had
He
one
wasn't
of
a
those,
base umpire. He's behind the plate.
Charting umps, huh?
He had one of those against the Marlins also, so much so that they wrote an article about it. I do think, though, that Dan, the internet fooled you on that, because the reason he was having a good season is because he wasn't having a bad season. He wasn't missing calls, and it's because he had back surgery. So he missed about half the season, I think, with a back injury. So it's not that he was having a good season. It's that he wasn't out there messing things up, so no one was noticing that he wasn't around.
Smaller sample size.
Fair enough, but he has returned and is now again.
Oh, he's back.
By metrics, he is again the worst umpire.
Making up for lost time.
He's Steve Martin also.
Oh, sorry.
Are you proud of him as a Cuban?
No, he's a blight on my people. No. Angel Hernandez is in.
That's a little rough.
I mean, if you're
not really.
You kind of want to have the best or the worst of something, right? Like, no in between. Like, have the best umpire, have the worst umpire.
I mean, he's the only one that I associate by name in refereeing or umpiring with terrible judgment. He is the Stugotz and Amin of umpire. Just
Thank you.
bad judgment. You weren't heartbroken, though? Like, what's your investment level? Because you've gone in and out. I don't have time for this. I can't invest in this team. My passions here are something that I can't stretch any thinner. I've got to be at home. I've got to be attentive to my kids, to my family. And here they are playing meaningful games late into the night. And Billy,
the time's not great. I wish that they would change that time up a little bit. I mean, they're not going to change it for me. If they
already have changed it for you. They've sped up the game. They start at 6:40 all the time. How much earlier do you want it to be?
Well, now I'm in a situation where it's like right at the bad time. You know what I mean? Because like 6:40 is bed, bath, and dinner time. So like
lot to do inside the house.
Exactly right. And now. While I love the game is a lot faster, it also takes just about that amount of time to do all those things. So, like, I can catch the start of the game, and then I can catch, like, the 8th inning.
I was just about to go into a beautiful soliloquy about, not only Billy was talking about the foul poles, but that extends to the uprights in football. They need to go infinitely up. And the but Le Batard.
He's not entirely wrong about that. I think Adam Carolla does a bit where he's like, just go, it's $1 billion sport. Go get some PCP pipe.
PVC, yeah.
PVC, excuse me. That
That's
is a fine. That's a
yeah.
totally different pipe.
Totally different pipe,
Jesus.
Dano.
$5. Wow, that's a bad one.
And yesterday, by the way, it was Miggs in the cell next to Hannibal Lecter who was masturbating in Silence of the Lambs. It was not Anthony Hopkins.
Hannibal Lecter.
I'm going to be sitting there, and he's going to subject me to a faux hawk, and I can't do the faux hawk thing. It's ridiculous. I'm a grown man. I need an age-appropriate haircut, and I'm going to be subjected to just something bizarre. I don't know what's going to happen.
His hair right now. Did he just, after burying the original deck shoes, did he go out and buy a replica pair of 1980 deck shoes to replace the ones that he has actually buried in his backyard?
They look used also. I think he likes the
he likes the used look, though.
Exactly,
yeah. Those are new, though.
They are new, but what he did is he bought a replica of the same 1980s deck shoes that he wore.
You got to respect the deck shoes. I mean, it's the all-American
How
footwear.
can he hear you in therapy?
I mean, it's like, in the past, I don't know that he's talking about the deck shoes now, but just in the past, from what I understand, I mean, I'm here I need a service animal. I got a service shark. I'm hugging it because I'm so anxiety-ridden.
Do you guys ever wish that you bought double of the same thing because you like the product so much that when it's gone, you're like, I wish I would have bought that? You have?
I have bought. Like, there's certain Nike shirts that they go out of style and they don't sell them again. So I'll buy 2 or 3 of the same pairs just to have them.
I read the other day what Michael Jordan makes per day from Nike.
Oh, boy.
Tell me.
Per day. You want to guess? You want to take some guesses of what it is that Michael Jordan,
$3 million.
365.
I'll take a guess. I'll say $722
I
a
was thinking
day.
like 280 is a good number.
722.
You got it exactly right, Stugotz.
Whoa!
You're amazing. You're amazing at the game. I can't believe it. Congratulations. You have perfected the game.
I'm so proud of you.
It is $700,000 a day.
What?
That Michael Jordan makes, reportedly.
I kind of thought it was going to be more.
Does he get PTO?
That feels low to you?
You mean more than 300?
I'm working for free. I can't help. Michael Jordan, he's making a lot of money. I'm guessing. Again, I don't know they were talking about that, but I can't get anything from this show. I'm sitting on a couch here. They don't even have the budget to get a leather couch. I'm sitting on a cloth couch. I'm sorry that my shoes seem to be offending people, but
how can he hear the show out there? He's
weird.
supposed to be in therapy, separated from the show,
He's
talking,
just in tune with the
talking
show. He
to
knows.
his therapist is what he's supposed to be doing, not doing show while he's out there. I wanted to ask you something, Stugotz, and go ahead and bring him in from the therapy couch because I want to bring our Miami Herald, Miami Dolphins expert in to navigate this part of this discussion because it makes an appearance every time, and I really don't know how to handle some of this stuff. Like Deshaun Watson is out there last night, and once Nick Chubb goes down, basically the only reason to watch either of those football games is TJ Watt. There's no other reason to watch anything else that's happening out there.
Gambling. Yeah.
And Deshaun Watson is getting an amount of guaranteed money that is staggering. They gave draft picks up for him as well. And I don't know when the right time is to talk about just Deshaun Watson's performance and not play word association with his alleged crimes. But when someone writes in the following, and it's fair criticism, I think, because I don't know what to do with the following. Le Batard loves to lecture the world on morality, but has no problem drooling over noted good guy Tyreek Hill on a weekly basis. Now, I've mentioned several times that he hits men, women, and children. And I've mentioned many times also that we were going to do when he was starting his podcast, we were going to go on each other's podcasts. He was going to come on this one, and I was going to go on that one. And as soon as I told
home and home.
As soon as I told his people, hey, I've got to ask him about his past, that vanished. But his past hasn't vanished. But there is no one in Miami, I think, that wants to hear about it right now. And I don't know if you're reading what's happening with Xavier Howard. I don't even know how to traverse some of what's true here and what's not true because something was debunked in a lawsuit. And so you hear a lot of stuff that has some holes in it about 4 different pregnant women and video of somebody hitting his car with a baseball bat and reports that he gave herpes at a herpes clinic to somebody who was working there, and I don't know what's true here, what's responsible here to report, but as some of this stuff makes its way around the huddle, and it's a 2-0 team that yesterday, I saw the coverage, Stugotz. The Dolphins, 2 weeks in now, everyone's saying, whoa, look out Super Bowl. Now, 2 weeks in a way they were not doing that last year.
They are the talk of the NFL. Pro Football Focus has them ranked. I know Lucy doesn't like them, but has them ranked as the best team in the NFL.
They went on the road and they won 2 road games to start their season 2-0. And they beat the Chargers and they beat the Patriots, which I don't believe are the cream of the league. Like we all know the last 5 AFC championship games have gone through one place, and that's why the Chiefs changed his contract yesterday. They want to make sure that dude is happy and making as much guaranteed money as anyone, that no one passes him because he's the thing that matters the most in that conference, in that sport. But Miami is talked about now in that class when you watch the Chiefs go to Jacksonville and their offense looks more constipated than Miami's does at New England. One of the things that I mentioned yesterday, because I don't know if you've seen this, Stugotz, but this is staggering. Bill Belichick, without Tom Brady, his record is 79-89. Dave Wanstett's was 82-87.
Come on.
Belichick's record without Brady is worse than Wanstedt. And when you're watching yesterday, when he doesn't have Brady, you may have seen the stat or Sunday come up, Stugotz, that said the Patriots in the red zone, the worst team in the league since 2020. Makes a difference to have Tom Brady throwing to Gronk. and Mac Jones trying to do what it is that he's trying to do. But the way that they're talking about the Dolphins now, Stugotz, has changed. And my question to you is, should I be saying every time he goes for a 70-yard touchdown pass, noted abuser Tyreek Hill had 211 yards?
That would be an odd way to cover Tyreek Hill. I mean,
but what is the right way, though? I think there
not
are.
that way.
I think there are only odd ways, is what I'm saying. I'm saying that so much of this is shifted now in terms of how people feel about the misbehavior of their athletes, combined with sports can't stay out of the real world. If you have toxic workplace issues in Hollywood or in your place of employment, they're going to make their way to sports. If you have race issues, and I'm asking you about this one, because Deshaun Watson last night, I'm guessing, I would not watch either one of those football games, but I'm guessing there was no mention anymore. He's now just a quarterback, right. I would guess. Am I wrong about this, Lucy?
No, they did mention it once. They were like, noted accusations, and that was it.
He hasn't been the same. Like, he stinks as a quarterback. They gave up so many picks and so much guaranteed money, and that's what you get? 16 for 29, 150 yards, everything's thrown 5 yards. You got nothing?
And Baker looks good. I mean, he's 2-0 with the Bucs.
And without Nick Chubb, he's going to look even worse. It's going to be much tougher for Deshaun
No, there's
Watson.
more on Deshaun Watson without Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb was the offense.
Yes.
Now Deshaun Watson has to be the offense when you're making $45 million guaranteed dollars a year.
Right, correct.
Like, it's on Deshaun Watson now. On the field, it's on Watson to be great.
Amari Cooper comes back last night, and despite injury, gives them something. If he's hurt too, I don't know why it is you would watch Cleveland football. But I'm going back to the question, Greg Cody. You're a moralizer in print. Columnists do that. You are a homer. Miami has a genuine league-wide superstar in their wide receiver. I saw a list of wide receivers who didn't combine for 211 yards in week 1. It was like 8 famous receivers,
right?
Because they have somebody who went from Kansas City because he wanted his own team, didn't want to be in the shadow of Mahomes, wanted to speak freely, didn't want edits on his podcast, wanted to be a star, wants to be a Miami star, and has been made a Miami star. What percentage should it be fawning celebration of sports? And what percentage of it should be, hey, are you also uncomfortable rooting for someone who brings you excitement and enthusiasm? Xavier Howard, congratulations. But your whatever it is that's true about your life, it seems quite the mess. Like, if any of this stuff is true, it seems like what you've gotten going on away from the field is a giant mess.
I think it's pretty simple journalistically. I think a lot of it depends on how far in the past the allegations or worse are. With Xavier Howard, it seems to be more current than with Tyreek Hill. I know Tyreek had that silly incident that came to nothing a couple of months ago. But
he did hit somebody on a boat. Like, that's not denied. He slapped somebody on a boat.
Right. But supposedly with some cause. I'm not going to defend him.
That sounded like a defense.
I'm not going to defend him raising. But no, here's my point.
Supposedly, though.
Supposedly with some cause to slap someone upside the head.
Here's the larger point. When I'm writing a game column about how great Tyreek was, or praising him because he called Patriots fans the worst fans in the league and said, put my name on that. I like that in a player. He's colorful off the field. He's great on the field. He's the reason they're maybe the best team in the league, or one of the great reasons. I don't feel the need in everything I write about him to say Hill, who while in college was in trouble for the. No. Now, if I'm writing a profile on Tyreek Hill, if I'm covering the entirety of his life and career, of course that's a part of it, maybe a big part of it. And let's see what he says about it and how he reflects on it, if he's willing to talk about it at all. But in the day-to-day coverage of the team, I'm not going to bring stuff like that up every chance I get, because I don't find it relevant right now to what's going on with the team and how good they are.
You should be able to celebrate his accomplishments on the field without having to bring it up every single time.
Okay, but
that's
what
how I feel.
Okay, and you guys are fine in saying that. I agree with you, but I'm asking, in an impossible terrain, for you to give me a number because you're being absolute. You shouldn't have to mention it every time. Okay, so how many times should I mention it? How often should I mention it? What is the distinction? How long should go by before these things are allowed to disappear into the ether?
Once a month for me.
Well, I mean, I think like if you're discussing like he missed all of last season because you mention it there, right? But it's like, oh, and that's a first down by Deshaun Watson, who was accused of like. Then that's kind of like, well, what are you doing? It's the third quarter of the game. When you're addressing why it is that he's been gone, it would be silly not to explain why it is that he's been gone because people could think like, oh, it could be injury, whatever.
But what's my answer to this particular criticism? What is the correct answer to
Well, there's no correct answer. Yeah. Like it's not like there's like a chart that we look at and we're like, okay, well, this was the offense. You have 8 months and 3 days that you get to mention this.
There's no answer that's going to satisfy the critics who are coming at you for not talking about Tyreek Hill and his, what he's done off the field every single time you bring him up. There is no right answer for that person.
I think with Xavier Howard, like that's a lot of speculation. So like it not being discussed makes sense because we don't know what's true and what's not there,
Now, another factor is what is the effect of the controversy on the on-field performance? In the case of Deshaun Watson, it's fairly recent. It's just last year. And it's fair to wonder, as badly as he's playing through 2 games, it's fair to ask, is the shame he might feel or the controversy that he's still dealing with, all these ongoing lawsuits, is that affecting his on-field performance? That's a legitimate question to ask, and so I would bring that up in the context of writing about what's wrong with Deshaun Watson.
What are your thoughts? What are the audience's thoughts? I would have liked to have talked to Tyreek Hill over the stance of if he comes on here, people who manage Tyreek Hill's career, he will get a question about this, and then the interview evaporates. Because what does he need to do that for if he could just be on his own podcast saying whatever he wants without anyone asking him about that? Like, I know that Stugotz would have – we don't do conditions around here on interviews, but I'm genuinely asking the audience right now, what is the right play? Because I don't think doing that buys me anything. I don't think anyone cares about it other than me talking about it now. And there he goes grandstanding, or there he goes, another one of his moral causes when he's willing to celebrate Tyreek Hill every time he runs 80 yards.
The right play for you is exactly how you handled it. For you, everyone's different, Dan, but for you, that's
but what does it buy you is what I'm asking. The price of that principle is what? Does anyone I don't believe anyone in the audience cares.
Yeah, but you care, and it's your show, and it's your voice. No. So you made the decision that I think everyone who knows you knows that you would make.
And what you gain is what you already have, which is integrity. And some people in the audience probably do appreciate that you wouldn't have Tyreek Hill on with the condition that you not ask him about the controversy in his past. On the other hand, I didn't always do this very well, I try to put myself in the athlete's shoes as well. I don't blame Tyreek Hill for not wanting to rehash what's a few years in the past now. I don't blame him. I feel like he feels like he's moved on. I think he's got the right to move on, and pending any current rehash of what's caused his problems in the first place, I don't think it should be forgotten, but I don't think it needs to be regurgitated every time he's talked about.
But Greg, I also don't blame Dan for wanting or for not wanting stipulations on whatever the agreement was.
No, that speaks well.
I don't blame him at all.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Neither of you are necessarily wrong in that instance, right? Because you have the standard that you want to set and you want to uphold, but also like him and his people's job is to put him in a position to succeed. So, like, if anyone here had some sort of controversy and they were going out to promote a book or whatever, you'd be like, we're just going to talk about this. We're not going to talk about that. And, with the way that the media is now and with the fact that he has his own podcast, he doesn't need to go on one specific thing. He can pick and choose where he goes.
But this is my point, or what I would say to you, that, yes, we can both not be wrong, but only one of us is being penalized. Because I don't actually believe that anyone cares. The way they think about journalism these days, Lord knows how tired they are of hearing me talk about journalism. As journalism dies, I don't believe that the audience at large cares about that. I think if I gave the audience the choice, hey, audience, do you want to hear from Tyreek Hill, or do you want Tyreek Hill's interview to be canceled because I've got to ask him a question about his past? My guess is the audience is not going to choose the latter there, and so the cost of that is one-sided. Yes, of course, I would be, if I were him or his handlers, yes, please only put me in places where I look good. That's their job.
But in like that, I mean, it's a larger discussion. But this is having a company. You know what I mean? Like, you decide what you want the standard to be, and if you want to uphold integrity in your journalism in the company, whatever, then you can take a stand and say, we're not going to talk to XYZ people unless we can be completely transparent. And maybe some people will care, and maybe some people won't. But it's just taking a stand. Look, you're not going to make everyone happy no matter what you do, Dan. Like, whether you talk to him or you don't talk to him, there's always going to be someone that's upset about it. It's just what makes you more comfortable and what you're comfortable with the decision being.
I think a good portion of our audience would be disappointed if you agreed to that. If you were to have Tyreek Hill on, do a home and home, and not ask him about his past, I think they'd be disappointed in you. I do. A large portion of the audience.
I also think it's context matters here, though. If it's a South Beach Sessions where famously you talk about personal stuff and deep stuff, of course you have to get into the entirety of it. If you have him on for 10, 15 minutes to talk about the Dolphin game last week, I don't know that it's something that has to be brought up. Another quick example, because there's a million examples across sports. Mike McDaniel over the summer acknowledged that he's had alcoholism problems and that he's working very hard to get past those. If I'm doing a big profile on Mike McDaniel, that's a big issue. That's a big part of his life. If I'm just writing a game column, I don't need to go McDaniel, who over the summer admitted a bout with alcoholism. It just depends on the context for me.
Can you play the sound for me, please, of Tyreek Hill talking about Patriots fans?
On a Sunday night. Oh, it felt tremendous, man. Those fans are, some of the worst fans in the NFL, and I'm gonna stand on that, man, because they are real nasty, and some of the things that they were saying wasn't, I wouldn't say in church. So yeah, it felt great to wave goodbye to the fans, and I'll do it again. Bye.
A Patriots fan actually had, I think they're calling it a medical emergency that ended in death at the hospital. The Patriot fan experience, when you go into that place, Tyreek Hill is volunteering to you. Like, nobody asked him about what is that fan base, how do you feel about that fan base. He's volunteering that. And I just want to ask you guys, and I tried to do this yesterday, when you are that dominant, you know how unreasonable Heat fans are here, because 2010 through 2014 spoiled everyone in Miami. Now make it 5 times as long as that, where you're dominating football and you feel like everyone's coming after you on every Spygate situation because it is the world against you. And Bill Belichick looks up from the sidelines in what used to be dynastic, looks at opposing sideline when he used to have Brady and he could beat you with his guys no matter who was on the other sideline. And he looks back on his life and he says, and now I can't stop Van Ginkel. And now I've got no answers for Van Ginkel. I'll block a field goal in a way you've never seen a field goal blocked because I've got to win in the margins creatively.
But Van Ginkel,
where did that guy come from? Because on the screen you don't see him.
It is so funny, Tony. It is so funny that when that got blocked, I'm like, where'd that guy come from? Was he on the sidelines? Was he late getting into the game? How did they do that? And it's because they put a defensive player in motion to block a kick. If the Patriots had won that game, if that had been returned for a touchdown, we would be talking about Belichick's genius. Instead, you're 0-2. You can't stop Van Ginkel, and I've seen your son. You promoted him to linebacker coach. What are you doing? He does not look like a genius anymore, correct?
No,
spiking the challenge flag.
The aura has run away from Bill Belichick, and Tom Brady took it with him and isn't giving it back. And Belichick, he's famous for taking away what the other team does best. He sort of did that. Tyreek Hill had 5 catches for 40 yards. So what happens? Raheem Mostert happens. And the defense happens. And there's more than
Mike McDaniel happens.
That's what it was for me. It was him being able to show, like, okay, Belichick, you're going to take this guy away? Well, we could just do this.
Right. And New England famously takes away the edge, so they're running up the middle like you rarely see the Dolphins do. Half of Mostert's yards, maybe more than half, were coming between the tackles, and he was finding openings. And the offensive line, which is maligned justifiably and was missing their best blocker, Terran Armstead, they did a great job against Belichick's defensive line. So the Dolphins, they won both games in very different ways, which is indicative of a well-balanced team that might just be the best team in the league.
Did you hear the breakdown of that blocked field goal? Jake Bailey, our punter, who's our holder, used to be a Patriot. So people are saying that he has some tell of, like, he lifts his head, he takes a seg, whatever it was, that this guy was able to time. Oh, when this guy does this, I'm just going to take off and get the running start, and it paid off.
I think McAfee covered that very well yesterday. Van Ginkel will be joining us later in the show. But just as I gave the stat earlier, Stugotz, that Bill Belichick is worse than Wanstead, basically, which is fairly breathtaking without Tom Brady. His career record is 79-89. I want to give you what I believe to be the greatest stat in the history of football.
Wow.
Which is that Tom Brady never took a single snap in a professional football game in which his team was mathematically eliminated from the playoffs.
What?
That's crazy.
Really?
Not one snap in one game did he ever take where his team didn't have a chance to make the playoffs still.
Hard to believe.
It
really is. But is it, though? But
no, it is.
But yes, I know. That's why I called it the greatest stat in the history of football. But also not that hard to believe because it's him and because he was always in that conversation. I hope that people appreciate, not just in Miami, what the Patriots did to the AFC East for 20 years. Like all other dynasties pale in the modern era to what they did to the AFC East, which wasn't just always winning it, but always getting the bye that would get them to the Super Bowl because they had 2 home games because they were so much better. Stugotz, every night you're watching football, it's a 3-point game. Saints, Panthers, they're all close.
Right.
All these games are close. For 20 years, for nobody to challenge the Patriots in a reasonable way.
Wow.
It's an insanity. Well, what?
I mean, the Dolphins had that 1 year with Pennington, right? I mean,
it's 20 years of in a sport rich in parity, rules forcing everyone to be equal.
No, you're right. They were always 2 home games away from making it to the Super Bowl. 2 home victories away from making it to the Super Bowl every year.
But what I'm telling you, Stugotz, for people who thought it was overly negative, that I should simply be celebrating that they beat New England in New England, I found it funny and boring that game was decided by inches here and there. Belichick challenging for an inch on a spot. Gesicki flipping it very smartly to his offensive lineman.
It's a game of inches,
who
Dan.
doesn't get there by an inch. The idea that they're wrestling this alligator that lives now at the bottom of the division. For the Dolphins to be able to be in a conversation where I'm not scared of Belichick. Before that game, I say the Dolphins should be favored. When the Dolphins are winning throughout, I'm saying is something weird Dolphin-y going to happen here, but I'm not saying the Patriots are going to strangle the Dolphins here. I'm saying, are the Dolphins maybe going to be poorly coached? No, I don't think so. Is their quarterback going to do something dumb? He dropped a snap, but I trust them. This is a totally different thing around here. We didn't have it last year. Buffalo's still the standard in the division because of what they've done the last couple of years. But the idea that I would be watching them play the Patriots and the king and his throne don't matter to me anymore.
But, Dan, what you feared was Tom Brady. Who fears a coach? No one's fearing Mike McDaniel. What they're fearing is Tua, Tyreek Hill, and Waddle.
There's no one else in the league. Stugotz, if you give me a coach, I would say to you, please give me the one thing Belichick has, which is he takes away the one thing you want to do. He takes it away every time.
Right, and he took it away, and the Dolphins still won.
I
The one
understand.
thing he had was Tom Brady.
But yes, and so what I'm marveling at is that over the last 20 years of dominance, them married together, they had all the winnings in all of the margins because their coach was going to do stuff like that to you. And when you fumbled that snap late, you were losing. Man, Stugotz, when people compare Tua and Herbert, have you seen this stat? Chris Cody said yesterday the Chargers are annoying. Here's why they're annoying.
I said I hate them, but yeah.
Right.
But
You lost a bet on them.
No, but yes, you said you hate them, but you also said they're annoying because they should be better. Why aren't they better? This is one of the reasons they aren't better. And this is a fairly staggering thing to say, given that we are comparing Tua and Herbert for the last 3 years. Herbert has had and blown 10 fourth-quarter leads. They're leading in the fourth quarter, and then they don't win the game. That's more than anybody since 2020. And that's why they're annoying. That's why Staley's in trouble. That's why Herbert is probably underregarded as winner guy. But at the end of that game, Dolphins-Patriots, Tom Brady beats you. You're backpedaling in your living room. You're so afraid of what Tom Brady – what do you mean Tom Brady has the ball? You can't tell me, even as Mac Jones went down the field, that you're going to fart your way to Gesicki flipping it to a lineman instead of Brady throwing it into the corner with something super precise. It really is something that I haven't been able to enjoy down here in 20 years. It's been 2 decades since we've been able to feel anything like what I'm talking about. Energy, passion, expectation, fun.
It was an unusual feeling Sunday, which is I never thought the Dolphins were going to lose. Throughout that game, there wasn't a single time when I thought, here it comes again. The Patriots are going to be the Patriots. They're home. They're going to win this game. Never thought the Dolphins would lose. And they're going to beat Denver.
I'm not sure, but I'm not sure that that's true. I'm thinking if I go next to him on the fumble on Tua and on the Sanders block, I think I might have found plenty of Dolphins.
I'm with Greg.
fans.
I never felt for a second the Dolphins were going to lose that game. Now, if Tom Brady were playing, I would have went into it thinking the Dolphins were going to lose that game, and they would have.
Yeah, and Mac Jones isn't terrible, unlike Zach Wilson. He's not terrible.
Yeah. No,
but
I'm with my dad. Mac Jones hasn't been terrible these first 2 weeks.
And their defense, by the way, Belichick still has the defense. And they could finish a 500. They could be a 9-7 team. I don't think they will be, but they could be 9-8 rather. Keep forgetting about that extra game.
It's annoying.
Greg,
really
Chris said last week that he doesn't think that the Dolphins are going to lose on U.S. soil until Thanksgiving. Do you agree with that?
At Buffalo, October 1st.
Right.
Litmus test.
What channel's that on?
Whoa, wait a minute.
A litmus test.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
Litmus test.
Greg Cody,
Yep.
I love
who
that.
soon will have an age-inappropriate haircut.
He better not.
Hold on a second. He has announced to America
Correct.
that in October, the Dolphins are playing a litmus test game.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's
At
on
Buffalo.
CBS,
Yeah.
which Chris said they won't lose on CBS until December.
Right.
So.
I need to back away from the microphone.
What does a litmus test look like?
I'm
Like,
glad
is it
I
a
didn't say that
a
word.
Scantron? Like what?
No, it's a
like
strip
little
of paper.
strip.
It's a strip
Yeah.
of
That you, like,
paper.
pee
You
on?
dip it in
Right.
something. It's
Yeah.
supposed to turn a certain
Yeah,
color.
like a
It'll tell you
pregnancy
if it's
test.
acidic
Yeah.
or basic.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
a pregnancy
exactly,
test?
Science 101.
That can't be right.
Is it
Not like a
litmus?
Litmus.
Yes.
Try and spell it.
LITMUS.
Try and
Nah, I'm good.
spell
Like
it.
Christmas, but lit.
sorry.
I mean,
No,
you
that's
got it out
not
before you
it.
said it, Dan.
Thank you, Roy.
No,
Thanks, Roy.
it's just in
You're welcome,
keeping
Greg.
with him not listening to anything we're doing around here.
What'd you say? I didn't hear you.
I have in front of me something from Roger Sherman, who writes the following.
Who?
Roger Sherman.
Raj. Is it Richard? Or?
A Bills game, the most recent Bill game. In addition, this is from WBEN News Radio, 9:30 a.m. in Buffalo. In addition to the 29-year-old drinking ahead of the Bills game, he was also under the influence of LSD, cocaine, and marijuana. Officials say they recovered the individual at approximately 30 to 40 feet below the surface. The fire company and AMS assisted in the recovery of the individual who fell in the hole at the stadium construction site. Sheriff John Garcia says this was a very isolated incident, and it took about 20 minutes to get the man out of the hole and to the hospital. Sheriff Garcia says many people at the scene watched the male take his clothes off and cover himself in human feces at a porta potty on site.
What?
There's a lot there.
Bills fans is what's there. Bills fans have been in that feces-covered hole for these same 20 years, right, with the Dolphins.
And the Jets.
What are you covering your hands and your head for?
Because
This is the new and unimproved Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugotz. Gamble on by DraftKings.